Political pressure as the White House ramps up damage control, or at least tries to, in the wake of the classified documents controversy. This as brand new details come to light surrounding the president's handling of a classified documents case dating all the way back to when he was a senator during the Carter administration. Good afternoon and welcome to Fox News Live. I'm Bill Malugin, and Jillian, it is great to be with you yet again.
It's great to be with you, Bill. Thanks for coming back for weekend two. It's
Thanks
been
for
nice to
having
have
me.
you in D.C. I'm Jillian Turner. The president is spending the weekend out of the fray. He's at his vacation house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Here in Washington, though, even some Senate Democrats are now saying they support a full investigation into his mishandling of classified material. Let's bring in Lucas Tomlinson. He's got new details this afternoon from the North Lawn of the White House. Hi, Lucas.
Good afternoon, Jillian. Reporters here at the White House are also curious why President Biden is spending this weekend at his other house in Delaware, his summer house, during the winter.
The president going to his home in Rehoboth Beach today, does that have anything to do with classified documents being found at Wilmington and none being found at Rehoboth?
So as it relates to classified documents, information, which the president takes very, very seriously, I would refer you to the White House Counsel Office for any statement coming from here or anything new developments coming from here. But as it relates specifically to the investigation, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
President Biden first arrived in Washington as a U.S. Senator 50 years ago this month when Richard Nixon was president. 4 years later, Biden sank Jimmy Carter's pick to lead the CIA over the nominee's illegal possession of classified documents he had taken with him from the White House years earlier. Some Republicans think that's rich. After days of ignoring reporters' questions about his classified documents, the president responded late this week.
I think you're going to find there's nothing there. I have no regrets. I'm following what the lawyers have told me they want me to do. It's exactly what we're doing. There's no there.
The new Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee has written President Biden's intelligence chief asking why he hasn't received any response to a letter he wrote 10 days ago asking for a damage assessment over the discovery of this classified material, Jillian.
Lucas, what are you hearing about the ongoing investigations at this point?
Well, it's notable, you said it off the top, that Democratic senators are now getting involved. Joe Manchin and Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine recently announced he's going to run for a third term to represent the state of Virginia here in the U.S. Senate. Some Democrats want answers, and certainly this is going to lead to, more this story getting more traction because now you have, of course, Democrats asking questions about what happened to this classified material and why did it come out. Just drip, Jillian.
Yeah. All right, Lucas. On the North Lawn of the White House for us this afternoon. Thank you. Bill, it's notable the House Intelligence Committee leadership, the Republicans, are now calling on the intelligence communities themselves to carry out this national security investigation to find out if any of the information that was in those documents, reportedly, they covered everything from Ukraine to the UK, whether that potentially has any impact on future national security threats.
Yeah, and the Republicans are asking DOJ for documents. They sent a letter the other day, DOJ did, making it look like it's going to be a little murky as to whether or not they're actually going to give those documents. And now a lot of people are talking about the hypocrisy of all this, right? Because remember, when President Trump had his document scandal over the summer, President Biden kind of went out of his way to go on 60 Minutes, went on TV, and he said that infamous quote, now, how could anybody be so irresponsible? Then we hear him the other day, well, there's no there, and I've got no regrets. So kind of a switcheroo right there. So
hypocrisy in Washington, you say? I'm shocked.
What a
Bill.
shocker, right?
Shocked.
Yeah. A whole lot of angles to this story. So for more on this, we're going to be joined by Democratic Representative from Michigan and member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. That's Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. She is also a member of the House Natural Resources Committee. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Good to be with you.
So first, want to get your reaction to what President Biden said the other day, finally speaking out about this latest batch of documents. You heard him. He essentially said, look, there's no there, and I've got no regrets about what happened. What was your reaction when you heard him say that? And is that the right messaging to the American public right now?
Bill, I want to say this, that whoever handles confidential, classified material needs to take it very, very seriously. And I think what's been happening the last year or two as this has come out has got people asking a lot of questions. But let me be very clear. There has been a very different approach on both of these instances. These classified documents by the President Biden got, and there's Department of Justice investigation that was set up very quickly and clearly. So there would be an investigation and no politics. The Attorney General did not want politics to apply to this, though obviously it is. And the president's cooperated. In the case of President Trump, it was the archives that knew that documents were missing. They were trying to get them back. The president wouldn't cooperate, and that's why there had to be an FBI search of the home. They're taking different approaches on this. I think we need to get the facts on all sides. And, you know, it makes you wonder, okay, were there other materials taken when other administrations left? We don't know. But I think we need the investigation, we need the facts, and then all of us need to look at how is classified material handled, and are there things that need to be set up so that we keep these from happening again? And an end of administration is chaotic. You know, the questions, was this material taken deliberately? Was it inadvertently taken? That's what the DOJ's got to find out on all. And I think it is very clear that one side is cooperating and one side is not.
Sure, but at the same time, as you mentioned, politics certainly plays a part in all this, and we've now learned that the Biden administration essentially tried to hide this from the American public for the better parts of 2 months now, including right before the midterms. I want to, if we can pull up this New York Times article, their headline, the name of this article, 68 Days of Silence. Here's a little excerpt from that. The Times writes in part, quote, "The decision by President Biden and his top advisors to keep the discovery of classified information secret from the public and even most of the White House staff for 68 days was driven by what turned out to be a futile hope that the incident could be quietly disposed of without broader implications for Mr. Biden or his presidency." So my question to you, Congresswoman, was hiding it from the American public the right move in this case?
You know, I don't know that he was trying to hide it from the American public. That is a person's interpretation. The Department of Justice has come very quickly. I think the Attorney General wants to make sure that this is a full and complete investigation. They had lawyers immediately involved. They were giving the guidance of how this should be handled. And I do believe I want the facts, and I want the facts in both cases. Certainly, I believe that this president has indicated he wants to cooperate. He has told people to go and look at all of his other files, see if there's anything there. And that's a very different approach than someone who moves boxes of classified material because they don't want them to be found. They don't return them when they're being looked for. They have to go and get subpoenas to be able to look for them. I think that's a very different approach to dealing with this issue.
Sure, but I want to follow up real quick. I mean, it's obvious at this point that the White House knew about this in early November when the first batch was found. Then CBS breaks the story. That's the only way the public gets to find out about it. They hold a press conference. They don't talk about the second batch of documents that were found. Then we find another batch last week. There's just been this constant drip, drip, drip. Do you have concerns that the American public just was not informed about this, especially right before a midterm election?
I want the facts. I want the Department of Justice to be completely thorough, completely honest, and I want the facts. There's a lot of already speculation and politicization, and I do believe that the Attorney General very quickly appointed a prosecutor far quicker than he did in the Trump investigation because he, too, does not want this politicized. He wants the facts, and that's I do believe you have to look at the difference in approach on these two instances. And at the end of it, when we get the facts, I hope this is a message to everybody that we got to look at how classified material is handled and the danger it is.
And the very last question, 30 seconds here. I want to ask you about the debt ceiling. I saw you tweeted about it the other day, essentially saying if we don't raise it, there's going to be dire consequences for workers and our economy. President Biden and Speaker McCarthy apparently set to meet and discuss the debt ceiling. Look, I understand there's going to be consequences if the debt ceiling is not raised, but the flip side of the coin is, are we supposed to just keep spending money we don't have, and do we just keep kicking the can down the road? What kind of a short-term solution are you looking for here?
What I don't want is to have long-term consequences for us to forego on our debt payment and to see the worker pay for it. You know, the debt ceiling was raised 4 times under President Trump. We got to sit down, we got to reduce the budget, but, you know, the president reduced the budget last year, $1.4 trillion, the largest single deficit reduction of any president. And during the Trump years, when we cut taxes and billionaires and corporations weren't paying their fair share, we raised the debt more than anybody. We got to sit down in good faith, if that's doable or possible in this new not new, it's become far too partisan on both sides. I think the American people want us to look at the budget. How do we reduce the deficit? Have people pay their fair share of taxes, which is something that really matters, and balance the budget, but not create economic chaos and endanger our economic and national security.
We'll have to see if some sort of compromise can finally come out of this. Rare in Washington these days. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jillian?
Well, across the political aisle, let's get reaction now from Iowa Republican Ashley Hinton. She serves on both the House Budget and Appropriations Committee. Congresswoman, let's pick up where Bill and Rep. Dingell left off there. There's this new narrative emerging from the White House over the last couple of days, which is that the president is not actually responsible for the classified documents found at his house. It comes down to the fault of staff. The latest name circulated via a strategic leak to the Washington Post was Kathy Chung. She was his executive assistant when Biden served as the vice president. Does it matter at the end of the day who actually moved these documents from the White House to the president's home and his think tank?
Well, Jillian, first, thanks for having me on to discuss this issue. The American people deserve answers, and the mainstream media may have been giving President Biden an automatic pass here, but Iowans clearly see a double standard when they see one, right? They know what's happening here. I think it's very clear we need to make sure we have a Department of Justice that is not beholden to one political party. We need to make sure taxpayers know that their dollars are funding equal justice under the law. But I can tell you this, there are a lot of questions about these documents. It is very clear that the Biden administration knew that this was happening. These classified documents were discovered before the election. So we need to know who knew, when did they know, and why did they choose to keep it secret from the American people for, again, more than 2 months, and again, right before an election. So there are some serious questions that need answered here.
And we know that the Justice Department was one of the elements that knew before the election. They're conducting this investigation now into what exactly the process was, how these documents ended up there. But the Intelligence Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, is asking for this national security appraisal. So far, they've not responded to their request for information. Why doesn't the House just take this up themselves? Why doesn't Republican leadership take it up?
Well, and I think you'll see that coming from our committee chairs. They're already hard at work putting together their requests for information. We do have those questions that we are going to be answering of all of these department heads. They have to come before us. Accountability is coming under this House Republican majority. And whether it's the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, every area that the Biden administration has failed, the American people, again, deserve to know the truth here. So you'll see Jim Jordan and Jamie Comer asking all those questions about who had access to those facilities. Where are the visitor logs? When, again, did people know? Who knew? Who was responsible for transporting those documents? Who was responsible for securing those documents? But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is President Biden had these classified documents in places they should not have been, and the American people need to know why.
Are James Comer and Jim Jordan also going to ask those same questions of the DOJ when it comes to President Trump's alleged mishandling of classified information?
Yeah. And I think, again, what I said is the American people want to know that the Department of Justice is applying equal application of the law here, not serving one political party over another. So nobody should be above the law. But what it comes down to here is the deliberate misleading of the American people. Again, when did they know? How many people knew? And did they choose to keep it secret from the American people?
Multiple legal theories are being circulated now by analysts and legal experts. Everything from this is a violation of the Presidential Records Act to it's in violation of the Espionage Act. Does any of that matter outside of litigating this in a court of law? Meaning when you and your colleagues look at the issue, when the national security community evaluates this, really what matters here is that there was a violation, correct?
Right, but I think we all agree that we need to take a serious look at how classified materials, classified documents are handled. I can assure you I don't keep any of that in my garage. I keep all of my important documents secured in a safe in my basement, right, so that they are not available for just anybody to pilfer through. So I think we need to be having serious conversations about how that information is accessed, under what settings. I know as a member of Congress, we have to go into a secure facility, the SCIF, so to speak, if we want to have those briefings or view those those documents. So it does beg the question of how did they exit the White House? How do they exit those secure facilities? And then why did they end up being stored as they were? So I think all of those questions will be a part of the broader investigation conducted by House Republicans here. But again, it's about making sure that there is not a double standard applied here, equal application under the law.
All right, Congresswoman, thank you for taking time with us this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jillian.
You bet. Well, tomorrow on Fox News Sunday, Shannon Breen's going to sit down exclusively with the co-chairs of the Problem Solvers Caucus on Capitol Hill. That's Pennsylvania Republican Brian Fitzpatrick and New Jersey Democrat Josh Gottheimer. Check your local listings for the time and channel there. Over on Media Buzz, Howie Kurtz is going to dig into the media's coverage of fallout over the Biden classified documents scandal. That's tomorrow right here on Fox News at 11 a.m. Eastern.
Well, Jillian, in the latest reversal of pandemic-era hiring sprees, Google's parent company, Alphabet, is announcing a massive wave of job cuts. We're talking the company slashing 12,000 employees. In case you're wondering, that's the most cuts in the company's history. Alexandria Hoff joining us live with more on the latest in this string of tech layoffs. And Alex, we're talking tens of thousands of jobs just gone now, aren't we?
Yeah, almost 200,000 in total, Bill. And those 12,000 employees at Alphabet represent about 6% of the company's workforce. In a blog post and email sent out to employees yesterday, CEO Sundar Pichai wrote of the, quote, difficult decision, adding this: over the past 2 years, we've seen periods of dramatic growth. To match and fuel that growth, we hired for a different economic reality than the one we face today. These job losses add to those already dealt by companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Facebook's parent company, Meta. According to layoffs.fyi, since the beginning of 2022, tech firms and startups have slashed more than 190,000 jobs. And with that has come the phrase white-collar recession, with companies coming to terms with overhiring during the pandemic boom. Google, in particular, may have overinvested in artificial intelligence technology as well. But could the mass layoffs indicate darkness ahead for the rest of the U.S. economy? The White House says no.
But what we're finding is that given the tautness of the labor market, given the fact that there's over 10 million vacancies, unfilled jobs out there, many of those folks are finding jobs and good jobs pretty quickly.
Well, U.S. job growth has remained solid as a whole, with 13 months of job openings above 10 million. But there have been signs that it is beginning to soften in the face of higher interest rates. In December, 223,000 jobs were added to the economy. That's the smallest gain in 2 years. Now, in terms of tech layoffs, the White House says that they will watch closely anytime that Americans lose their jobs. Bill?
Really tough way for tens of thousands of people out there to start this new year, Alex. Thank you for that live report. Jillian?
Well, new details are emerging now about the sentencing guidelines that actor Alec Baldwin could face if he's convicted of involuntary manslaughter.
And he did nothing about it.
Now, the special prosecutor also says, Jillian, that the FBI determined Baldwin did pull the trigger on that gun. It's a claim the actor has denied repeatedly, though questions remain as how this will all play out in court.
Instead, they're using the criminal justice system to go after somebody who, even if you think this was terrible behavior, was not purposeful. This was not an intentional killing. Nobody even alleges that. Not even the state alleges that. This is what the civil justice system is for.
Yeah, we're going to have to see how this all plays out in that court. At this time, Baldwin will not be arrested, though he will have to appear before the judge, but he could do that virtually. Jillian.
Alexis McAdams in New York for us this afternoon. Thank you. So, Bill, some pretty serious charges he's facing now. We haven't yet had comment from Baldwin. I know that one of our cameras has been staked out of his New York City apartment for 48 hours now. No sightings, no idea what he's thinking up to this point.
This one's a head scratcher for me because, look, I'm a gun owner myself, and literally the first thing they teach you when it comes to the gun safety, the very first thing, is don't ever point a firearm at anything. And I know whether it's unloaded or unloaded, you just don't point it at anything. And, you know, he's saying he didn't pull the trigger, but the gun that was used is a single action revolver. The only way it fires is if you pull the trigger with your finger there. And an FBI forensic report confirmed that. So his statement.
Which he denied.
Yeah, he
right?
denies that, but I mean, he's going up against the FBI's forensic, specialist. So.
And reality, it
yes,
sounds like.
Yeah, it does not fire unless you pull, regardless of what happens with the hammer, you got to have your finger on that trigger. So, look, he's in some legal hot water. He's been on TV saying it was somebody's fault, but not his fault. He's been saying that. So, a lot of media interviews for prosecutors to work with in this one, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what happens. But we'll turn now to Atlanta. We're talking airport security. It's in the spotlight again after a series of incidents at Atlanta International Airport. This, as reports uncover a record number of gun confiscations at airports really all around the country. For more on this, Jonathan Seri is joining us live in Atlanta. So, Jonathan, what kind of security issues are we talking about?
Well, a whole range of them. Right now, authorities are investigating a couple of potential security breaches involving the airport perimeter and TSA security. In one of the cases, a man apparently walked past a TSA checkpoint without presenting identification, without presenting a boarding pass. Authorities say Adonis Murray walked past document screeners, went through the magnetometer, collected his belongings on the other side of the X-ray machine, and then walked onto an open jetway, but a pilot stopped him just short of boarding a plane. A spokesperson for the Transportation Security Administration says TSA is investigating the incident further with our law enforcement partners, and local TSA officials are looking into ways to improve visibility and strengthen enforcement around document checks stations. This breach came just hours after police arrested another man who allegedly climbed over the airport's razor wire fence, drove a service vehicle around the airport, and boarded a Southwest plane, coming face to face with an employee in the cockpit before leaving and driving off in another service vehicle. Police arrested Terrence Stewart for trespassing. Nationwide, the TSA says its screeners detected a record number of guns in passengers' carry-on luggage last year. You're supposed to declare weapons at the ticket counter and then place them in locked hard cases with checked luggage. Across the country, the agency flagged a record 6,542 firearms in carry-on luggage at 262 airports over the course of 2022. But even unarmed passengers have caused some problems, resorting to makeshift weapons. Videos on social media over the holidays showed a woman in Miami throwing a computer at an airline agent, and just recently here in Atlanta, a woman was seen using a fire extinguisher on several airline employees. Police arrested her, but 3 flight attendants had to be treated at a local hospital after they inhaled the spray. Bill?
Yeah, a lot of viral videos coming out of airports these days for all the wrong reasons.
Official numbers for the month of December in a Friday night news dump. Migrant encounters, it turns out, along the southern border top 250,000, a new monthly record. National correspondent Griff Jenkins broke that reporting here on Fox News Live with us last weekend. He joins us now from Eagle Pass. Hi, Griff.
Hey, Jillian. Yeah, official in a Friday night dump. It would make you think the administration doesn't want to draw attention to it. Let me take you up quickly to our sky drone, though, and show you here. We just had a group crossing over the National Guard next to the shipping containers topped with razor wire. That's what Governor Abbott's tried to do to get those numbers down, but yet, obviously, they have still been coming. And it's not just those that are being encountered. The smuggling is on the rise, too. An important part of this story, take a look at this footage that our cameraman Lorenzo shot embedded with the Texas DPS yesterday. In the span of 6 hours, they foiled 3 separate smuggling attempts. More than a dozen migrants were recovered and 2 individuals arrested and charged with human smuggling. Now, let me go back to those encounters and show you just what's happening here. If you take a look at this drone video we've put together for you, Jillian, you can see Title 42, migrants being put on the bridge, sent back into Mexico, about a dozen there, while at exactly the same time, a group of more than 20 migrants crossing illegally into this area. That is exactly what we've got here, a revolving door. Now, let's go quickly into those numbers. 251,487 officially for the month of December, of which 49,405 were Title 42 expelled. That means 200,000 migrants were caught and released into the U.S. That's what frustrates border officials so very much. One more number I want to show you, and that is the fiscal year to date. Since October 1st, 113 days, there have been 717,660 migrant encounters. That's essentially the population of Denver, Colorado. And at the heart of all of this is the control the cartels have on our border. We spoke to a Mexican national about whether he fears the cartel. Here's what he told us.
Yes, I am somewhat scared, but I have to take the risk. The bad guys, the cartels, of course. We have access codes that we have to give them on our trip, or we'll get kidnapped and then bad things happen.
In just a quick one more look at that sky drone, you can see here come a couple of migrants walking up the road. It happened 15 minutes ago. It happened an hour ago. It happens all day long. But really the number that Border Patrol officials worry the most about are the gotaways, and the number that they did not put out publicly, I will share with you. There have been more than 278,000 known gotaways this fiscal year. That's 2,465 a day across the entire southwest border. Jillian, we'll send it back to you.
Griff, an Eagle Pass for us this afternoon. Thanks so much. Bill?
At Groundhog Day down there in Eagle Pass, like it, hours are astronomical. For more insight on this, we're going to bring in our next guest. That is National Border Patrol Council President Brandon Judd. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you, Bill. Thank you.
So let's get into these new December numbers. As Griff mentioned, they were dropped late on a Friday night. Once again, about the third month in a row that they've done this. If we can pull up this graphic right here, these numbers are just jaw-dropping. Over 250,000 migrant encounters, the highest single month ever recorded at the southern border. More than 70,000 known gotaways. 17 people arrested by Border Patrol on the FBI's terror watch list. And we're now up to 38 people on the terror watch list arrested at our southern border since October 1st. Brandon, your reaction to these numbers?
So the first thing we have to do is we have to put the numbers in perspective. We have to look at the apprehension numbers. December in any typical year is our lowest month. January is our second lowest month. We just recorded the highest month ever in the history of the Border Patrol last December when it should have been our lowest month. And that's what's scary. But then, of course, then you look at the terrorists. 17 people on the terrorist watch list in the month of December. In any typical year, if we even get 6 per year, that's a lot. Yet we had 17 in 1 month. This is what's so scary about border security. This is why border security is so important to the American people. When you look at the number of people that are getting into the United States, the number of the gotaways, we don't know who they are, where they're coming from, what their intentions are here in the United States, yet they're here. And that's what's scary because it's going to ultimately cause harm to the American people, and we don't know what that harm's going to be. It's going to be down the road, but there are going to be Americans that are going to be harmed, put in danger's way, because this administration won't do anything about border security.
And Brandon, House Republicans are really starting to ramp up their efforts in terms of calling for the impeachment of DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. The House Oversight Committee announcing they're going to have border hearings starting in early February. I want to pull up this video. The other day, right here in D.C., I tracked down Secretary Mayorkas, and I asked him about some of this, tried to get an answer from him. Didn't work out too well. Take a look.
Excuse me, Mr. Secretary, any comments to Republicans who are calling for your impeachment, sir? Good morning. They've announced an oversight hearing for the border next month. Will you cooperate, sir? Sir, any comments to Republicans calling for your impeachment, sir? We'll let you go.
So as you can see, all I could get out of him there was a good morning. But look, you're a Border Patrol agent yourself. You're out there in the field, and you're the president of a union of every Border Patrol agent in this country. Where do you stand on impeachment for Mayorkas? Should he be removed from office?
Bill,
He
is a public official. He's a public official. He has a responsibility to answer those questions that you asked him. He has a responsibility to be transparent to the American people. He has never been transparent. When you look at all the questions that he gets asked by the media or when he gives a press conference, all he does is circle talks. And then at certain times, he even lies. And that's what's impeachable. When he lies to the American people, he must be removed from office. Then, of course, you look at the dereliction of duty. You look at what's happened on his watch. You look at all the people that have made it into the United States, the gotaways. You look at the people that we apprehended. Somebody that was deported twice in Virginia that was on the El Salvador top 100 watch list. That's scary, and that's what it's his responsibility to keep that under control. Then you look at the number of deaths that we've had because of fentanyl overdoses or opioid overdoses, and that's also on his watch. That's his responsibility. All of those things, the lying to the American people, the dereliction of duty, all of that obviously calls for impeachment, and he should be removed. The problem is because the Democrats control the Senate, he's never going to be convicted. He'll never be removed because this is all about politics. If we pulled politics out of the equation, we would actually have public officials that would do right by the American people. But because politics permeates everything that happens in Washington, D.C., these people are allowed to stay, and that is wrong.
And in the meantime, the crisis continues. You can see the live drone images of more migrants crossing right now. We'll have to see what happens with these border hearings in the GOP House in the coming weeks. Brandon Judd, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Jillian?
Well, the Pentagon just announced another $2.5